Hello everyone, it's Bean. Welcome back to the brewery. Today we're talking about Duke Ulder Raven Guard. Now, what's your first impression with this card? My first impression was I want to be playing big ETB trigger creatures, because Myriad will give me an additional 2 triggers every combat of whatever the best ETB trigger I have in play, assuming the original can survive attacking. Mere Battlesphere creates 8 1/1s each turn. You can win the game with that. And Angel of Serenity will make it hard for your opponents to win the game by bouncing 6 creatures a turn. But these are not the best ETBs in the deck, because you see, if a creature has an ability that triggers whenever it or another creature enters the battlefield, things get out of hand very quick because you're having 2 of those creatures with the same ability as that creature into the battlefield. For example, what happens when you give Myriad to Coercive Recruiter and attack with it? Well, first thing is you get 2 copies of Coercive Recruiter enter the battlefield. Then their ETBs go onto the stack. But then Coercive Recruiter, the original, sees 2 pirates enter and puts its abilities onto the stack. But then the 2 copies of Coercive Recruiter see each other enter and they put 2 more abilities onto the stack. And so when this mess resolves, you're going to be gaining control of 6 creatures until end of turn. You can do this every turn, as long as you control Coercive Recruiter and Duke Ulder, and can attack. Also, Coercive Recruiter is 25 cents. I'm just throwing that out there. Also, since Duke Ulder makes tokens, you can populate at instant speed to get another token, only this one will stick around. Moving on, we have Scourge of Valkis. Scourge of Valkis does the same thing as Coercive Recruiter. It sees itself enter, and then also sees its tokens enter, and then the tokens see each other enter, so you get to deal 3 damage 6 times. It's a great middle ground between Mere Battlesphere and the Angel, because it can both kill your opponent's stuff, and also, kill them. If you get 6 turns to attack with this thing, then you basically won, because everyone's at 5 life. Actually, no, everyone did die because you attacked with the dragons. That's another good thing about Myriad. You don't target anyone, you just kind of attack everyone. All the time, always. But a lot of these spells are expensive, so how do you ramp? Well, Ganax Astral Hunter will let you ramp. And yes, here's the thing, even though it's a legendary creature, so when it attacks and you get copies, the copies die immediately, they did technically enter the battlefield before they died, because in order for them to die, they had to be in play with another legend of the same name. So what happens is you get a whole bunch of treasure tokens, because the same thing happens with all the things before. He sees both of them enter, they see each other enter, and they see themselves enter, and that is 6 treasure tokens for you, boy, every turn. And you know what? Maybe your opponent is ramping too much, and you want them to stop ramping with their artifacts, so you're going to destroy all the artifacts every turn. Then you got Tuk Tuk Scrapper, which is going to destroy 6 artifacts each turn when you attack with it. However, you're probably only going to attack with it once or twice, because it's probably going to die. But you don't like dying, so we have Archon of Redemption, which is going to gain you 18 life when it attacks, and also it has flying, so it's probably not going to die, so you can do that every turn. And then at the bottom of the barrel, we have Forgeborn Oreads, which is going to die when it attacks, and is going to deal 6 damage to some stuff, which is really bad, and I would not advise playing this card. The one exception for Forgeborn Oreads where I will play it is if you're sitting down at the table with 6 or 7 people. Holy smokes, is this a repeatable board wipe. Because with 6 opponents, you're going to get 5 extra Oreads when they attack. They're all enchantments, so they're all going to enter and ping, and you're going to just deal 25 damage each turn, divided as you choose. And then just every turn, you can just attack with the Forgeborn again and again and again. It's like a bastard cousin of Scourge of Valkis. Now, because this is a budget deck, I decided to fill it out with, budget cards. And what's more budget than gain control of effects? There's all these threaten effects that'll gain control of an opponent's creature and give it haste. And if you give it Myriad, you get whatever that opponent's creature was. You get all of that. For example, you could steal an Eternal Witness and then attack with the Eternal Witness, which will get copied twice, and you'll get to bring back whatever the thing that stole the Eternal Witness in the first place was, and something else. And, very key, if you gain control of your opponent's commander and you attack with it with Myriad, then the Myriad creatures will also be legends, and you can sacrifice your opponent's commander and keep one of the other legends around. And it's even better if they have dice triggers, but all of these spells, they're also just kill target commander or target legendary creature. And all of those spells cost a combined 20 cents. And then of course there are plenty of cheap ways to upgrade these effects, but you don't need to. Another way to get rid of your opponent's commander or mana rocks or whatever is Skyclave Apparition, because it just kind of gets rid of it and gives them a token, which means this is a generous gift, except in this deck you get 2 of them a turn, which against some decks is just pure evil, and against other decks is not going to have much of an effect at all. And hilariously, if you exile someone's commander, they won't get the token, because the commander isn't exiled, and thus nothing is exiled under the Skyclave Apparition. Like I said, it's pure evil. There's also a bunch of generically good budget cards like Outpost Siege and Warstorm Surge, and these boring but necessary creatures to make our land drops, and then these other creatures which let us draw a card when they enter the battlefield, which can help us hit our land drops, but then also, when Duke Ulder is in play, we can attack with them to draw 2 cards, and then the original is probably going to get blocked and die, so we're only going to really do that once. And since we have threaten effects and a whole bunch of little creatures, we also have these sacrifice outlets. They also work well with Duke Ulder's Myriad tokens, because you can sacrifice the Myriad tokens, and then you don't even lose anything. And then in terms of cards that are really good at drawing cards, we have Secret Rendezvous and Clockwork Fox. Secret Rendezvous is going to draw us 3 cards, and we're either going to target an opponent that's about to die, or an opponent that we want to be friends with. Or, like, for example, say there's an opponent who still has 7 cards in hand, target them, they're going to end up having to discard cards, and they're probably going to be grateful. Though usually I use this on a player who's either mana screwed or mana flooded, so that they can just actually be in the game. And Clockwork Fox is 3 mana, draw 6 cards if you have a Duke Ulder out, which is really good, because that basically single-handedly refills your hand. This is like a wheel. Like, if you think about it as a wheel, it does give your opponent some advantage, but it also gives you 6 cards. I would not play this card for value. Play this card when you have no cards in hand and you need to refill. Also, for some reason, nobody ever seems to block this, so you just get to draw, like, your entire deck. So then we have Your Temple is under attack, which lets you maybe draw cards if you need to, but more importantly, it lets you protect your team. So, like, if you build up like 3 or 4 creatures, you have a lot of big creatures there's a lot of big creatures in this deck. You want to protect them, and so having this card to protect them is good. And then it can also draw cards in a pinch. Honestly, this deck really doesn't draw that many cards. It just kind of plays good cards. And then, of course, there's our Disruption. Now, I don't see instant speed removal as removal that you use for value. That is what your ETB triggers are for. That's where you get your value from. This stuff is to get your opponents when they are trying to do something. For example, trying to win the game. If they play a really game-ending card, you can deal with it. The fact that it's instant speed lets you wait to see if someone else has an answer first, and then they can use their answer. And you do not ever want to be casting these proactively. Yes, I know one of them is better when you're casting it on your main phase. Maybe it shouldn't even be in this category. Now, something very important about this deck is that it doesn't really care about the board too much. Like, it's not building up a board to the win. You're going to have, like, Duke Ulder and then, like, 1 other card out and then a bunch of lands. So if you're destroying all Nonland permanents, that's going to hurt your opponents far more than it's going to hurt you, assuming you can keep making your land drops. And so instead of just casting a Destroy All Creature spell, why not just destroy all of everything? It's very rarely going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt them. Also, a Steer Command is like 70 cents. A lot of the time, you're just going to use this as a board wipe, and then you're going to keep Duke Ulder around, so you can, keep using him and not have to recast him. This will get rid of, like, tokens. This gets rid of enchantments, gets rid of artifacts. Before Farewell was printed, Austere Command was, like, the best board wipe in white, in my opinion. Now, let me ask you this. Which of these 2 cards do you think is stronger? Return Pastcaller or Ardent Elementalist? Now, normally you would say, oh, Ardent Elementalist. If you're going for an ETB that returns a thing, you're probably going to choose the cheaper one, right? Because this is like 6 mana for, what, a 4/2? But here's the trick. It has flying, so it doesn't die when it slams into your opponent's creatures, because they probably can't block. And yeah, returning 2 instants or sorceries a turn is pretty good. Especially if that instant or sorcery is one of those effects that gains control of target creature. Or maybe a populate spell. And then when you attack, you can get your populate thing back, which gives you back another one anyway. And you just keep getting return Pastcallers until you beat your opponent to death with this 6 mana 4/2. Now, if you only have Ardent Elementalist, but you do have a removal spell, you can cast the removal spell, and then attack with the Elementalist with Myriad to get the removal spell back, and then hold it up before blocks, and then threaten your opponent and tell them not to block, because then you'll kill their creature. And then if they're like, okay, I won't block, and then you'll keep your creature, and then next turn you'll cast the removal spell, and then attack with it and get it back, and you guys will be in the same exact situation. Mandate of Peace is like one of the best cards in this deck. It's part of the core epic Myriad combo. Because the way Myriad works, it exiles the creature at the end of combat. It's not an until end of turn effect, it's an at the end of combat effect, which means that a triggered ability called Exiled This Creature goes onto the stack. Mandate of Peace removes it from the stack. Your Myriad tokens. They stick around. To illustrate this, let's use Archon of Redemption as an example. You attack with Archon, get 2 other Archons, cast Mandate of Peace so that they stick around, and the next combat attack, get 2 more Archons. These don't stick around, but you do gain 30 life. And you can loop it with Return Pastcaller. Also, you can use this to fog, or to just mess up someone who is planning on casting spells in their second main phase, which is absolutely hilarious. But you know what does the same thing, except it can do it every turn? Sundial of the Infinite. You play a Sundial of the Infinite, this card's like $5, but it's worth it in this deck. You play a Sundial of the Infinite, attack with something, say like a 5/5, and you get 2 5/5s. You end the turn with the Exile ability on the stack, you keep your creatures, next turn, you get more of them. Every turn, you're getting just a gradually, steadily growing army. Also, this card's really bad, but I thought it was really funny, because if you attack with it, you can get 2 tokens that'll exile your lands, and then when they leave you get your lands back untapped. So it can give you like 4 mana. Now the reason this is bad is because it's ramp after you've cast an 8-drop. And also, if the tokens get killed while they're exiled, the land's ability is on the stack, then you return the lands to play, which aren't even exiled, and then you exile them, and they're gone for good. So you can just like accidentally exile 4 of your lands. I had to mention it though, because I thought it was very funny. Just look at that boy; he's a good old nightmare beast. Eey. But speaking of ramp, how do you ramp in Boros? Well, you might have noticed that our commander is a 6-drop, and most of the stuff that we really win the game with are also 6-drops. So getting to 6 or 7 mana is really important. And so there are 2 main types of mana. There's fast mana and then there's big mana. Fast mana lets you get extra mana at the cost of 1 or less mana. However, fast mana does have 3 big downsides, the first of which is that you can become a target, and everyone's going to target you with their removal. And secondly, mana rocks are way easier to remove than lands. So if you play a lot of fast mana, and eventually all the artifacts are destroyed, you're going to lose a good chunk of your mana. And the final downside is that it makes you sweaty. I mean, if the reason you're running all the talismans and signets you can fit into your deck is just so that you have a higher win percentage, then why don't you also run Mana Crypt and also run Jeweled Lotus? It's the same logic, except they're more expensive. Also, even though they keep being reprinted, none of them are under 25 cents, so they're not even affordable in this deck. And then big mana like Thrion Dynamo and Gilded Lotus have the same kind of problem, where they make you a target because you have a whole bunch of mana, but they're also kind of expensive. And then on top of that, they're only really good if you're trying to cast like a 10-drop, and this deck is not trying to do that. However, we do have access to the beautiful middle ground of all of these mana rocks that don't come out very early and don't tap for all that much, but they tap for more than 1 mana. Like, it's as if we played 2 lands. But they are probably going to get blown up at some point. The best ramp in the deck is Solemn Simulacrum, and then the second best ramp, the Core Cartographer. They are both a way to get to casting Duke Ulder earlier, and then also a payoff, because getting 2 lands a turn is very good. And you can't exactly give Myriad to your Hedron archive. And speaking of that, did you know that Burnished Heart is 8 cents? It used to be like $2. I remember that. No, it's 8 cents now. It's been reprinted into the ground, which is so nice because it's not fast mana, it's synergistic, and it is really good ramp. If you have like 9 mana, you can sack all 3 of the Burnished Hearts, because it's going to give you two copies, and then you get 6 more mana, so you get to go from 9 to 15, which basically means you can cast anything. Finally, we're going to go through the last few cards of the deck. Now, there's a quick ruling with this. It gains control of a creature when it enters, and that creature will gain haste and Myriad. And then Duke Ulder can give the creature haste and Myriad. And the haste doesn't stack, but the Myriad actually does stack. Which means that instead of getting 2 tokens, you're getting 4 tokens, and if you have more players, it gets even more crazier than that, assuming your opponents have things that are worth stealing. But given this is Commander, they probably are playing good creatures and not bad creatures, because, like, why would you do that? It's really sweet if you can get an Avenger of Zendikar, though. Holy moly, is that fun. And then to fill out the removal, because we have so much creature removal, we also have Enchantment and Graveyard Hate, this thing that can either be Ramp or Artifact Hate, non-land hate, and then non-basic land hate, because you gotta have a way to deal with like Gaia's Cradle and Cabal Coffers and all these nonsense things your opponents are playing. While it is true that you could destroy 3 lands from a single player, I would advise spreading it out, because that is just more fun, unless that player is running away with the game, in which case it is perfectly fair. There are other cheap creatures that destroy lands, but none of them have flying, and also if you have too much of this effect, it's just completely unfun. I have unbending morals, what can I say? Lastly, because I have no budget for this deck, we're running all basic lands, feel free to upgrade them. On the positive side, they all come into play untapped. If you're going to give this deck to a friend, I suggest switching a couple out for like the basic enters tapped things, like the Guild Gates. Don't keep a hand with less than 3 lands in it, unless you have an Armillary Sphere. And overall, that's the deck. The exact deck list might change a little bit, but it's basically solid. The main core idea is that it's a Spellslinger deck, because you have all of these things that gain control of opponent's stuff, and you can kill your opponent's commanders with that. But then on top of that, you've got all this great late game stuff, and so really, it's this like control deck, because you're controlling but then it's also like an aggro combo deck. So it's like doing all these things at the same time, and then it's like a control deck, but it's also not drawing cards, and it gets the card advantage by just destroying all non-land permanents. I love this deck. I got to play it in a gameplay video. It's coming out pretty soon. I played it on Cockatrice because it's way easier to record on Cockatrice, and I also can't use Magic Online because I don't have a PC. Anyway, see you guys next video. Stay strong, stay smart, keep going on. You got this.